Hi friends, welcome to WebChamp. In this video, I am going to discuss storage modes in Power BI. Okay, let's understand what is this mean. What is mean by storage mode? It is also called connection modes. Okay, so let's say I have a one Power BI file, and if I get connected to the any of the source, and when I over the mouse on the table, there is something called a storage mode. Okay, it is showing you by default it is import mode. Like this, Power BI has two more modes, that is what direct query mode and live connection mode. Let's understand what is mean by import, then direct query, and then live. So in import mode, what will happen when we get connected to the source? Power BI will download the data. Okay, it will import the data into the Power BI's internal engine, meaning entire data will get copied into the Power BI file in case of import mode. Okay, this is the default mode of Power BI. When data will be loaded into the Power BI as an import mode, Power BI has one engine, okay, internal storage engine. That engine is named as an Vertipack engine. That engine is going to compress the data. And why it is compressing the data? So data will be compressed to optimize the performance of query, so that your operations, query operations should work faster. Okay. And when you have to work with large amount of data, and when you wanted to enhance the performance, okay, by taking the advantage of in-memory data storage of Power BI feature. Okay, so that advantage we can take by using this import mode. So definitely a large data set can be compressed. Okay, so let's say if you have a data for 1 GB, so it will get compressed around 300-400 MBs. Okay, so this is just approximate number. Okay, it may get compressed for the lower size or higher size, depends. And yes, when data size is small, definitely performance of the Power BI is faster. So what are the different advantage of using this? So what we can do, we can schedule the refresh. Okay, when we use the import mode, we can schedule the refresh, meaning you may want to refresh the report on weekly basis, then you don't need to go and refresh the reports manually. Okay, whenever you publish the report on service, you can schedule the auto refresh there. Your report will get refreshed automatically at the specified time. Okay, and you can schedule that refresh 8 times maximum per day. Then definitely, as I said, when data is stored in the memory, Power BI performance will be higher, meaning if the data is available in the Power BI itself, and when you build the visualizations and perform the operations, so that operations are going to work faster. Even visualization works much faster as compared to other modes. Okay, in case of direct query mode. Then data transformation, Power BI, whatever the things are there, okay, in with respect to data transformation, calculations, then creating the connection between two tables, that is what nothing but modeling in its Power Query editor. So yes, everything or each and every feature of Power BI desktop you can use with this mode. Each and every types of calculation you can do with this mode. Okay, then yes, you do not need a connection always. You do not need to have the continuous connection. You can work offline also, and you can create create the dashboard reports even when you are disconnected, okay, from the source. So that is what the benefit of import mode. Obviously, if the benefits are there, we also come across the disadvantages. Okay, so data volume. So what is mean by this? What are the different disadvantages of import mode? Okay, whenever you wanted to connect with very large data sets, so this downloading data is not a good idea, meaning the import mode is not a good idea to connect with source. Why? Because it will consume the lots of memory. It will consume the even if the data is very large, performance of Power BI will be slowed down. And even yes, while you are generating the reports, it will lead to performance issues. Okay, then resource consumption, as I said, if the data set is larger and if you are going to use the import mode, it will consume your large memory. Okay, sometimes you may get error stating that out of memory. Okay, so that happens. Even data staleness is there. Okay, so let's say you your data is getting updated, frequently, and if you do not perform the refresh operation frequently, then there will be a difference. Okay, there will be a difference between source data and our Power BI data. So that is what the problem again. Okay, then security considerations. Your data, we can say that if the data is already there in the Power BI, then there is a chances of data leakage. Meaning if you share the Power BI file with someone, the person whoever has received that file, so she would be able to view the entire data because the data is sitting in the Power BI. That is what the risk if the Power BI file is not protected. Okay, so this is all about the import mode. Okay, so the way we get connected to the source, let's say if I wanted to get connected with any of the source. Okay, if I connect to text or CSV file, if I get connected to this file, okay, by default it will get loaded as an import, meaning the data will be copied to my Power BI report. Here even here also you can see the connection mode is import. Okay, so for all the types of connections you can do this, you can use the import mode, but yes, we have discussed the limitations and advantages also. Now come to the point, direct query mode. Okay, what is mean by direct query mode? So like import mode, in case of direct query, you will not get the Power BI will not download the data in Power BI file. It will keep the data remains at the source. Okay, it is not going to import the data in internal storage engine. Okay, instead of that, what it will do, it will send the SQL queries to the source. The queries will get executed at the source, whatever the database you are using. Okay, and then after execution of the query, only subset of your data can be loaded or requested or transferred to the Power BI file from source. Okay, but when this can be used, okay, this is useful whenever you wanted to have the real-time data. You may want to connect to the source in such a way that your Power BI report should get updated as soon as the data get added to the source, right? So this is like live connection to the source, to the database, when you are dealing with large data set, very large and sensitive data. Sensitive meaning the data which is not good to share very easily, or very high secure data you may want to handle. So in that case, this direct query mode is perfect. Okay, in the direct query there is something called query folding. Okay, so what is happening in the query folding? So query folding is a process, okay, which helps to generate the SQL query. Okay, Power Query has that feature. Okay, and we can use this. Okay, whenever you get connect to the source, connect to the databases, okay, in that case, this is going to work. This query folding is going to work. Meaning, suppose if you load the data from Power SQL Server, and then you are grouping the data, for example, then what you are doing, you are trying to reduce the number of rows based on the group by operation. So if it is possible to perform the group by operation in SQL, then why we are loading the large data set into the Power BI? Instead of that, what we can do, we can request, we can use the query folding, and meaning Power Query will do query folding, and automatically it will send only the updated query to get the group by data from SQL itself. Okay, so this is how it's going to work. Let's try this part now. Okay, so import connection is very simple. If you get connected to the source, the data will be loaded as an import. Okay, but let's say if you get connect, if you wants to connect with SQL Server. Okay, and let me say this is what my server name. The SQL Server is sitting in my local system. Then let's say if I wanted to get connected with this. Okay, so by default here you can see that there are two modes. Okay, but if you get if you want to connect with the files, it is not going to show you this kind of options. Instead, it will get directly connected, considering that direct query mode when data connectivity mode is import. But here we have direct query also. If we import, if we use the first mode, what will happen? It will fetch the data and download the data in its internal engine, right? Whatever the engine, Vertipack engine, to process the data. But if we use the direct query mode here, okay, we don't need to specify anything. We don't need to pass, even you don't have to pass the statement if you want to see the query folding. What you can do, you can go and say okay. Okay, this will get connected to the source. Okay, and it is showing me all the databases first. If I click on the databases, it is showing me tables. If I select this table, okay, I'm going to show you how query folding works. Okay, until the preview gets loaded. Okay, I have not selected. Okay, now I have selected, and I will go to the transform data instead of loading, because I have to work with query editor. Here we can see how query folding works. Okay, and we need to wait until the data gets loaded from the server. So in this way, data will get loaded from the SQL Server. Okay, and if you go to the applied steps here, if you go to the applied step, and if you right click on any of the step, there is something called a view native query. Okay, if you view the query, you will get to know what query it is using. Okay, so this is a SQL query. This is a SQL query that is executed on the SQL Server from the Power BI. And this query gets generated automatically. Did I write any query? No, right? I simply get connected and I selected the tables, and this query get generated. Now let's understand what is mean by query folding. Suppose I wanted to have the sum of cells, meaning if I wanted to perform the group by operations, okay, based on, let's say, country. Okay, there are many countries. Instead of that, okay, based on, I will say, region. I wanted to see the sum of cells. So this data has column called cells. That's why I'm using. Okay, so this is my cells amount column. Okay, and I wanted to group the data based on the regions. Okay, so what I can do, I can go and perform the group by operation. Okay, here if I come and if I perform the group by operation, if I select the regions here, and then I will say sum of sales, and I want sum of sales column. Okay, this is what I want. And if I say okay, right, again it will perform the grouping operation. But if you use the import mode, your data is in your bucket, so it will work faster. But in case of direct query mode, what it is going to do? It is not going to load the data into Power BI, right? So whenever we request the data, so that query will be executed on server. And this time, what is happening? Okay, the grouped query will be created by the Power Query itself. Okay, and it will fetch the data accordingly as per the query. But we have not modified the query, right? As the query gets generated by the query editor, similarly, your query will be folded by the query editor. Okay, and if I go here on group by, and there is something called view native query, but this option will not be enabled until you get the data. So still it is requesting the data with SQL Server. We need to wait until this operation get finished. Okay, that's why I said import mode is faster to work, but direct query mode is not faster. It is slower. Okay, so the group by operation is successful. Okay, it took time. Okay, whenever we use the direct query mode, it takes time to perform the operations. But now if I go and if I view the native query, okay, so this is what my modified query. Earlier we had seen different query, right? But what it does, it has grouped the data based on the region, okay, and how it is going to work. So whenever we perform the operation, this is what called actually query folding. Okay, your query get changed based on. So instead of doing the operations on the query editor, what this is the direct query mode or query folding is going to do, it will modify the query and send that query to the source. If the group by is possible in the SQL server or SQL databases, then it will perform the that execution there on the SQL engine, SQL server engine, and then only read the data, only load the data. That is what the subset of our data. This is what the subset I can say, right? Earlier I had fetched all the data, so now I am not fetching. Okay, and this is what we can say query folding. Okay, your query will get changed as per the your Power Query editor operations. But remember this, not all the operations are supported by the query folding, meaning in direct query mode. Whatever the operations you can perform in SQL, only those kinds of operations are supported in the query. And let's say you can load the data. Even the data is not here. Okay, if I close and apply, so what it will do, it will go and execute this query, the group by query, again on the SQL server, and then it will bring the data into my model. But data will not get downloaded. Data will remain at source. So we can use this metadata. Okay, so it will download only the data about this, meaning the region and sum of cells. These two columns will be reflected on our data pane in here. Okay, it will come here if I say close, but I don't want to spend more time on this. So I will say, okay, close and apply. Okay, it is fine. So this is about the query folding and direct query mode. Okay, I will say yes. This is just a warning. Then what are the advantage of direct query? Okay, when we use the direct query, you don't need to refresh the data. The moment changes happen at the source, it will be automatically passed to our report, meaning the real-time data. Report always reflect the current state of data, right? That is what the real-time data. It reduces data duplication, right? Data will not get duplicated. That risk it will reduce by using the direct query mode. Even you can work with very large data sets. If you have very large data, then instead of using import mode and loading the data into the Power BI, definitely that will consume lots of time and lots of memory. So instead of that, what we can do, we can use the direct query mode. Then security, data security, obviously the data is not there in your file. If the data is not there in your Power BI file, there is no risk of data security, right? Meaning the data security and governance policies are enforced at the source. Okay, only what we need to do, we need to make sure the credentials. Okay, if I come to this data view and if I click on the employee, you can see the data. Okay, you can see the data if I over the mouse, and this is what import mode. But if I use the sales data, okay, you can see that storage mode is direct query, and in the direct query mode, you will not be able to see the data. Why? But data is not there in a Power BI. How you can see? But yes, you can see the columns. This is what my columns, right? This is what about I am talking. This is what called metadata, the information about the data. Okay, that is what nothing but metadata. So it has, and whenever we generate the visuals and if we try to filter the data, so again it will generate the query, it will fold the query and send to the source. Query will get executed there and data will be passed to Power BI. This is how it works. That's why this direct query mode is very slow as compared to import mode. Okay, then what are the limitations of direct query mode? Yes, obviously if the advantages are there, definitely there will be a limitations will come in the picture. That will, the limitations mean nothing but disadvantages. Okay, so query performance, as I said, queries will work slower. Okay, then limitations, limited transformations. You cannot do all the transformation. As I said, all the operations from the Power Query is not supported. Even all the types of DAX functions are not supported in the direct query mode. If you read the Microsoft documents, so after every function name, meaning if you open the specific function details, okay, so there is a warning message by the Power BI that this function is not supported in direct query mode for most of the functions. Okay, so this is what the limitation, data transformation limitation, data source compatibility. So yes, direct query mode works only with the databases and clouds. It is not going to work. Okay, you cannot use this direct query mode with files. So this is what the limit. It is not suitable for all the types of sources. Okay, then you can see that. Okay, one more thing I would like to mention. If you enter the SQL statement, as I shown when we were making the connection with SQL Server, there is something called advanced, and in the advanced, if you go and mention the SQL statement, this query building will not work there. Okay, don't pass anything. Just pass the server address, server name, and let's make the connection. Then query folding will work. Okay. Then these are the list of databases. That is what these databases are going to support direct query mode. Okay. So in case of only databases, this works. Okay. So this is what the, again, one of the disadvantage we have seen. Then next storage mode is what is live connection. Okay, and yes, in live connection, what will happen? We will not, obviously, like import mode, we will not download the data. We will directly make the connection with source, and data will be remains at the source. Very it works very similar. Okay, both direct query and live connection, both are going to work in the same way. Okay, there is a little bit difference. Okay, you can perform the operations on direct query mode. Yes, so you can make the some transformation, but in case of live connection, you will not be able to make the transformation. You need to use, or you have to use the data as is. Meaning, okay, let me open another Power BI desktop file. Okay, and let's go there. Okay, meanwhile, we will see here. Okay, so you can read this information. This is just for the information purpose. Okay. So when you create the report in the Power BI using live connection, you can connect to the source as a live connection. You can create the visuals. You will not be able to view the data. You will not be able to perform the any other operation. Even you will not be able to open the query editor also in case if you use the live connection. Okay, so I have created one blank file and I'm going to connect with live connection. Okay, so let's perform that task first. How we can get connected? Okay, so if you go to the get data, there is something called a Power BI data sets. Okay, if you have already created a report, and if you want to create the another visuals on the same report, or if someone wants to do something with that data set, okay, don't share data set, and you may do not want to share the data set. So what you can do, you can ask them to connect with data source from the Power BI. Okay, so there is something called a Power BI data set. So this is live connection. So this will get connected to the data source. Okay, if I say this is what my Power BI, okay, data modeling is nothing, but it is fine. Anything if you select, okay, these are the reports I published on the service, Power BI service, and yes, whatever the credentials you use to log in a Power BI desktop, based on that credentials, it will fetch the details from the service. And let's say if I wanted to connect with this data set, data modeling data set, okay, I will say, okay, if you double click on it, it will get connected. Okay, and this is what my data set. You can see the data is in my bucket, but data view is missing. Here now we don't have data view. Why? Because you will not be able to use, even you don't have the data in your bucket, then why you know, meaning the accordingly it will work. I mean the Power BI will behave. Okay, in case of live connection, you will not be able to view the data. As I said, even you will not be able to perform the transformation. So what he says, okay, indirect query connection is required. Okay, at least direct query connection or import mode connection required. But if you get connected to that, then this is not going to work, the live connection. Okay, even if I right click on these tables, okay, you can see that there is no option to edit query. So we can't use, in case of live connection, we can't use the query editor also. Okay, then what if we can do? We can simply go and build the visualizations. If you apply the filters on the visualizations, so what it will do, Power BI will go and request the data accordingly, and data will be sent to your report from the source. You will not get the data. So okay, again, here, whatever you can see that this is a metadata. This is the metadata. Even you will not be able to create, okay, you can create the measures. Okay, there is a way to create the measures, but yes, there are many restrictions. I thought measures are also not going to work, but yes, it is going to work. If I click, you can see that you can create the measures, but you will not be able to create new column and new table. Nothing is going to work out of this. So live connection has lots of restrictions. That's why I said you need to use the data as you have from the source. You don't have option to edit the data, transform the data in case of live connection. At least in case of direct query mode, you were able to open the query editor and perform some transformation. Here, that is not going to work. Okay, that's the, again, limitation of live connection. I'm not going to create the visuals. I'm just showing you what actually happens when we use the different connection modes. Okay, live connection always rely on the existing data. It will not allow you to perform the transformation and all. So you can use the live connection with only these kinds of connectors. Okay, meaning the data set that is already published on the service, and you can use this Azure Analytics service as an your live connection mode. Okay, and even if there is analytical server is on your premises, okay, on premises instance of SQL Server analytical service, in that case only you can use the live connection. Otherwise, none of your sources are going to support the live connection. So this is very limited. Even if I go here and if I over the mouse, okay, you will not see something called storage mode here, right? In that case, you can consider that this is a live connection. So this is all about the live connection, and yes, these are the advantages. Okay, in case of live connection, you will get the real-time data, large volume of data you can handle very easily, meaning the data will not get downloaded, so data will remain at source. Then data security is no matter, right? And definitely if the data is not coming into your Power BI file, so it will not use your much space. Power BI size will be smaller. Okay, but yes, like direct query, it works slow. Whenever we make the changes, it will send the request to the source, and source will send the data accordingly. So this is how it's going to work. Okay, what are the advantages? Performance is the first advantage, right? As I said, it is not going to work faster. Performance will be slower in case of this connection mode. Then it is not compatible with most of the data sources. Okay, it is compatible with limited data sources. You will not be able to access the data offline, right? If you get connected with source, you won't be able to perform any operation. You won't be able to create visuals and all. Okay, don't need to perform operation in case of live connection, but yes, you will not be able to perform the visualization also. And if complex transformations are there, okay, that is not possible in case that transformation is not possible, okay, at the source, then again that is a problem. That is the problem with live connection. So this is all about the import mode, storage mode, and live connection mode. And here I have some comparison, okay, how to work, when to use. Okay, so connection type, let's say import, direct query, and live connection. So edit query is possible. Query editing is possible in case of import mode, but it is not uh, possible in direct query. And yes, in case of direct query, some extent it is supporting, but those operations are supported in the query also. So query folding is happening, okay, meaning directly Power BI is not going to edit that data sets. Okay, it perform the meaning query editor. What query editor will do? It will fold the query. It is not going to transform the data. Okay, then modeling. Okay, in case of modeling, meaning the creating relationship between tables, so it is possible in case of import, but in case of direct query also. But you cannot create the connections, even modeling part also, in case of live connection. So you can view, but you cannot create. If I go and if I see here, okay, so you will see something like this. The relationships are already created in between the tables. Okay, but the problem is what? You will not be able to make the changes to this. Okay, you can see, but everything is disabled here. All the properties are disabled, meaning this relationship and all everything will be declared or created in the source itself. We won't be able to perform. Then visualizations you can create in all the three modes. Yes, that is what the use of actual Power BI. Otherwise, there is no mean to use the sources. Okay, then we don't need to perform the refresh in case of direct query live connection, but yes, in case of import mode we need to perform. Then current data display, import mode is not going to display your current state of data, but instead direct query and live connection is going to display the live or current data. Okay, then data copied to Power BI. In case of import mode, data will be copied to your Power BI file, but in case of direct query mode, your data will not be copied. Instead, the data will remains in the source. Okay, this is how I made the comparison. And yes, so I hope you like the content of this video. So please do not forget to subscribe WebChamp, and for course you can dial the number given on screen. Thank you.